with Dave and Mecky. So I hope you have your tinfoil hat all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mecky.
This is Shiny Side Out with Dave.
And Mecky.
Who wasn't muted. Thank you. Coming to you live from Sydney, Australia on Revolution Radio. The station's website, if you're interested, is freedomslips.com. And it has a ton of information. It's got a chat room, and we're in there right now. And is FM and digital, and that means it's on air, online, and on your smart device. Search for Shiny Side Out on YouTube, Facebook, Blogger, and Twitter, and anything else. To I'll get that right one day. To like and follow us. At shinysideout.net, you can find our show notes and all of the links we share with you when you're in the chat room during the show. If you live in Kentucky, please pick us up on FM. Find WZZR 101.3 or anywhere else on the planet for that matter, and I do mean anywhere else, via either tunein.com or Web Radio Central or Receiver mobile app, or Freedom Slips has its own mobile app, or TalkStream Live, or streamfinder.com, or internet-radio.com, or Radio Tuner, or Radio Ways, or radioonline.co, or our very own app. I made an app. It's pretty cool. You can connect with Shiny Side Out. You can connect to our social media and any news items we put out. It's all there in an app. Or at home, you can have a Grace tabletop digital radio, or if you're driving around, lucky enough to have a General Motors vehicle, still made in the USA or Australia for that matter, vehicle with a receiver-enabled radio. And each one of these things that I mentioned outside of FM are revolutions in radio. It's changed radio. You know what? Don't just listen to us when we're on air. You can actually get the entire host season for 2014 or 2015 on your own CD to keep and listen to as much as you like. Follow the instructions on the website at freedomslips.com. It's roughly $34.95 US dollars, or $39.95 if you're outside of the US. You can also donate money. So this is Listener Funded Radio, right? So you can donate money to the station, but just not blindly donate. You can get something in return. I'm going to tell you that I've subscribed to the archives. So that's $5 a month, and it's a monthly fee of $5, and I've got access to all of the station's archives, and it's great. So just in case I can't record our show, I can get a copy for myself, because it's my last bastion. We have it going up to YouTube, as you can probably tell already, but and if you're in the station right now, there's a YouTube stream. Just go to Shiny Side Out on YouTube now. But you can get yourself something really, really cool. So you can get, when you're donating money, you can get a USB stick with survival documents, or a 75,000 seed pack. But be careful if your customs requirements or restrictions, if you're going to take them outside of the US, then you may find some issues. We can't bring seeds into this country because we're so isolated, and we like to keep it that way for bugs and things, and seeds are one of the things we're restricted on importing. But outside of all of that, you can call into our show and all the other shows, and the advertised number that we use is 347-688-2902. Or if you have Skype already on any of your devices, you can add an account called Freedom Screen, and you can dial that in. We do invite you, though, first to go into the chat room at freedomslips.com and discuss what you've got first, rather than just sort of cold calling us on air. We don't mind so much, but we'd prefer that you start to talk to us on air because we're in the chat room. You can talk to us straight away. We'll invite you on if you want. And that also includes an invitation going out to all debunkers on the entire planet. If you have something that you need to discuss with us, you can find our contact details via shinysideout.net. .com was taken. We got .com.au, but I heard you say that last week. Yeah. So anyway, if you didn't catch it, Solaris' show was fantastic. Once again, she had Ra Castaldo on, talking about Striga, Italian witchcraft and dreams, and there was a whole bunch of other topics all woven in between. So once again, Solaris had a great show. And if you're wondering who this Solaris is, because you're only subscribing to our YouTube channel or you're listening to our archive, you need to subscribe to the archives at freedomslips.com and get access to her archives there because they are amazing. Her guests are great. And I'm going to tell you, I do. That's why, one of the reasons why I do. I can't catch a show all the time, but it's like a podcast. I can listen to it later on. So jump into the archive and check out her shows. Meki, how are you? I'm sorry I couldn't make it last week. My internet,
No, good.
Internet was down. It came back up in a couple of hours after the show had ceased, and that was, well, pretty much the end of that.
It happens. We see in Australia, we are blessed to have the so-called NBN. It's the National Broadband Network. It's actually a company that the government created, which now has this government contract to roll it out globally. I think it's going to take about 50 years before it's rolled out.
And it's not even fiber.
I know. And
roll that copper out.
You'd think with 20 odd million people in our population, you'd think we have a pretty spiffy broadband network up and running. No, we do not. Every country I go to in general, the exception of India maybe, has a better broadband network than we do. So it happens. And Dave, not an issue at all. I think I've left you a number of times on your own, so it's good. I think I hope I didn't bore our listeners too much with my constant rambling. I didn't hopefully go off topic too much. There were a few things that needed to be said though, and in the process I did manage to get through to about I think 12 or 13 pages, Dave. So we're now halfway through our show notes to 1984, right? So this is what we're discussing with you today. But they've got a few news items before that. But I'm okay. I was in Adelaide last week, the entire week. Came home early today. I was meant to be there till tomorrow. Didn't have to, lucky. Working. Adelaide, Dave, is a beautiful city. If you have not been to Adelaide, guys, I've spent now a number of weeks in Adelaide in South Australia. That's the state that lost power in totality 3 or 4 weeks ago, the entire state. Now, when I say the entire state, and if you're in America, you're thinking, oh no, millions upon millions of people are without power. No. It's 1.3 million people in the state of South Australia, and most of those are living in Adelaide. So, so Adelaide was without power. No,
but the cause of it was not dissimilar to your recent hurricane, where
that's not. Yeah, thousands, tens of thousands of lightning strikes. So essentially, this is the actual cause, guys. So this was a superstorm, you can call it. Very high winds, probably for your hurricane category 4 winds. And there were enough lightning strikes to hit all of the power poles that would distribute the power across South Australia. So all the power poles went down. Now imagine that, right? So the major distribution areas and so forth, right? All the networks, all the distribution points were hit by lightning and were taken out by this storm. An unlikely event, they said. Right? And then there was a whole diatribe about, Adelaide or South Australia is using too much green power. It's not reliable. Well,
that's what it was. It was green power, Meki. It wasn't. It wasn't the dirty, non-renewables. No. It's the green power. The reason why it failed. No, that's so not true. Clearly,
it is a weather event. The weather event did it, guys. All right.
Well, you know those huge steel towers. They're minutely thin towers made of thin steel, and they have, maybe 12 or 15 cables strung between the towers, taking high voltage electricity as a distribution to local power distribution places within your area.
That's right.
The wind was strong enough. The wind was strong enough to blow 4 of those over, completely over.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a connection between Victoria, which is a neighboring state to South Australia, two power connections, but they went down as well.
Yeah.
So and sorry, no, that's not true. One went down, but they switched the other one off so it wouldn't overload and cause significant damage. Right. So that was a smart thing to do, I think.
Yeah, completely.
But yeah, so these people, there were some people that were without power for days. Rain was pretty bad. Things got washed out. In the roads and so forth. A couple of guys in my team, they actually live in Adelaide, and they told me about all that stuff, showed me pictures. The flooding was extensive. It was quite amazing to see that kind of flooding. Yeah, look, but otherwise I'm good, Dave. A lot of traveling this year. I had a look at my Qantas statement the other day, and I have traveled every month this year.
Wow.
Somewhere, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Okay, so it's not good. But yeah. No, I think things are really good in Sydney. The weather's beautiful, so that's excellent. We've had some really interesting events happening, which we're going to share with you as well as part of our news update. And it's probably take the better part of the first half of the show, and then we're going to go right back into 1984. And today we're going to talk about some of the things that are being done about the technology and then maybe the limitations. We pointed out to you last week. So there's some frightening technologies, if you recall, and now we're going to have a look at what is actually happening in the world, and specifically in America, and who are the whistleblowers. But before we do that, Dave, let's have a look at the news. Let's see what's been happening.
Well, look, I was dismayed a little today. That doesn't happen very often, and I'm really hard to budge. But one of those things was the global economy woes. Now, it's come up, and I was watching the finance channels, the global markets channels, and I was watching, CNN and Fox, and they're not the be-all and end-all of news, I understand, and you must understand that that's all I watch it for is entertainment purpose. But one of the things that struck me was the circular rhetoric of the same things being discussed on each of the platforms relentlessly with no outcome. And one of those things is The Economist still seemed shocked today at the world slump. Isn't that the weirdest thing? They say, the world's not doing very well at the moment. Don't know why. Can't tell you why. Don't know. But it doesn't look like it's going to get better anytime soon. And that's pretty much the sentiment. And all the people, say, from the IMF and above, all put a positive spin. Yeah, the recovery is happening. But then that's their headline. But the detail within their speeches has nothing in it. There's no quantifiable measurement to accept an increase. There's none. And so what I noticed, I wrote down about 20 points. Becky, if you want to take one of these one by one.
Yeah.
And that is that everyone has forgotten the real issue of the last 8 years. And I'm taking us, set the Wayback Machine for 2008. Okay, so the GFC, the global financial crisis, the fact that companies were willing to rip other companies off, they're talking about banks. So banks were willing to package dud loans into huge sales and sell them fraudulently to other banks. So they're selling off their debt.
And then to investors and funds, that's how it all bubbled up.
Yeah, exactly. That's we know that's where it went and where it came from, and that the entire thing started because of I don't want to get shot, right? I don't want to have to give my keys to my kids to start the car in the morning, but we know
that's nice.
Start Daddy's car.
Such a humanitarian. You love your daughters.
I do. So we know that that's because there was an honor system with no regulation. Because regulation's crippling, isn't it, Mackie? Oh my goodness! You'd have to be honest if you were selling something to someone. What? Passing on bad debt? Oh, you have to legislate that and say we have to come clean on it. But then we wouldn't be able to get rid of it.
That's the thing, though. So first of all, you're right. You're 100% correct. So just very briefly, what exactly happened was this: bad loans were written all the time because it was about making money, and these bank agents were on commission, and the bank managers and the bank executives didn't really care. So that everybody was writing bad loans. A lot was to people that they could never repay. Now in America, that's a problem because you can just give your key to the bank, and now all of a sudden it's the bank's problem, right?
You just mail it back to them.
This.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you very much. And that's really the crux of the issue. So this is what happened. And then these loans, which people knew were bad loans, were packaged with good loans. And then they were just packaged up, and they're all called prime loans all of a sudden. Now there are a couple of rating agencies in the United States that rate these investment packages, right? They analyze what's in it, and they then give it a risk rating. And if it's a very low risk rating, high return, it's a prime loan. It's like, it's good return, it's no risk, wonderful, that's great. So all these bad loans were packaged into those. So you had the banks working in collusion with the rating agencies, and you think, how can this be? This is impossible. Well, the banks pay for the ratings agency's service. Okay, so the bank goes to this ratings agency. There's a number of them, and and the reason there's a number of them, the banks can go to the one that does whatever they want them to do. Do you understand how this works? You're signing your own homework, okay? I've got a loan package here. Rate it for me and I'll pay you. If you don't rate it as a prime, I will go to your competitor, pay him more, and he will rate it for me. What do you say about that?
Oh, well, hey, Mr. Mackie Bankman, can I just can I accept the job? Because I'll do it.
Yes,
I'll sign it. Yeah,
you're hired.
Thank you.
You've got the right moral and ethical background. So this is really, and people say, it's so complex. Not complex at all. That's exactly what happened, right?
That's right.
And people try to make you feel dumb. You can't understand. You wouldn't understand. No, this is it. Nothing else happened. All right. This is exactly what happened. So, and then of course, once they have been rated and they've been sort of hidden in the paperwork, you don't know. Because once it's rated, you just buy the product, the portfolio, the investment option, whatever it might be, and that's how they made it all over. They made it into internationally. They made it.
It affected everyone.
Yeah.
Did you know even my local council, the local council had in its heyday, back then in 2006, it was swimming in money. Swimming. And went, you know what? We're going to invest tons of this money. Tons of it. Oh, all of it. We're going to invest all the money overseas. And they got bitten pretty hard by the GFC. So their investment was great because their money helped purchase some of these bad loans. And when all the value of all the capital of this investment disappeared, the value goes down and they lost money. A bunch of people did. All across the planet. The planet was affected by it.
It hits the people that can least afford it. But then you'd say, hey, that's okay, right? That's well, because there has to be some kind of insurance mechanism.
Because
there has to be some guarantee that guarantees investments, right, Dave? You'd say, you'd think that.
You'd think that, yeah.
But you know what the insurance mechanism is? It's your tax money for the big bankers, because what Obama did, and this is priceless. Yeah. It's priceless because people, when I say this to people, they don't believe me. They don't believe me. So Obama, the administration that Obama is heading up, they gave a non-repayable loan,
lump sum,
gift, a donation, if you will, to the bankers and I want to say hundreds of billions. I don't know the exact number, but I'm sure it's around there. And it was essentially your money, the American people's money, the taxpayers' money. Some countries went as far as Greece, for example. They went into your bank account to get money, into your bank account, if you believe it. The only country in the world that, I think there were two, but I only know about Iceland. So Iceland did not do that. No, they locked them up. They locked the bankers up. They nationalized the bank. And you know who's doing really well right now?
Iceland.
Dave? And we have Iceland
We
for
have a winner.
40.
Pepsi. So,
Yes,
so they did two things. Iceland did two things. They, instead of paying to rectify the real problem, they decided to get their people out of debt. And there was, I think, only about 20%, 23% of the people's loans were actually paid by the government. Paid out. Their house loans were paid out. So they became debt-free. And what happens when you're debt-free? You start spending more money. Yeah, because you go, woohoo, I don't have any debt anymore. I'm going to buy me all these things. Yeah.
And the economy picks up. Investments go up.
Yeah. So in this country, we had Uncle Kevin's Christmas bonus, which was about $1,000 a person.
No, it was means tested, so I did not get $1,000. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, you know, little old me, we got about $1,000, but we spent it on the things we needed. And
that's good.
And some people put on their housing loans, but most people bought big screen TVs. And that came out from Harvey Norman. Harvey Norman admitted that he'd never seen big screen television sales peak like that ever before, and never again. So, and they're a high margin product, and so he really enjoyed that. So you can imagine the money just went and went into his pocket, like it came past the people and went into those. Now, but really, this is what Mekhi was saying. He says, and I agree, the banks just got away with the initial problem because they were handed a fix-all tool, which is a lump sum bit of money, and that seemed to make the problem go away. But what did the banks do? Hey, you were so successful in getting that money off the government, we're going to give you a bonus.
Yes. See, this is where it becomes very cynical on my part. The banks had just done, they had committed a criminal act. It's a criminal act.
It
you
is.
can twist it
Fraud.
and turn it.
Yep.
I don't care which way you look at it. It was a crime. And now they put the economy in jeopardy, in fact, the global economy. So then Obama gives them all the cash and, to help them out and, fix the economy. And there's all goodness. What do? They turn around and slap each other's backs and
Money fight.
give money fight. Yeah, give each other massive bonuses. Now, something very similar has just happened in Australia. And this is, and I forget the bank. I don't want to lie to you guys. So I think it was Allianz Insurance, which also has a banking component to it. But anyway, it was a bank in Australia. It was a bank, and they had given bad financial advice to their customers. I think it might have been Westpac actually.
Well, I know Commonwealth Bank, Westpac, and Allianz. They're all doing the same thing.
Yeah, and the question was asked because every year we get I think 2 or 3 days. So when I say we,
The government
the
in a
members of
closed
Parliament
session.
get 2 or 3. Yeah, we get once. Well, yeah, it's not very long. It's just a day or so, right? A session to ask all the big bankers what's going on. It's like an oversight committee. Really doesn't do a lot. It's in lieu of a royal commission, or in your case, a congressional oversight committee or a Senate hearing. It's similar. But it's just once a year, and they don't want to do a Senate hearing. They don't want to do congressional oversight. They just want to do that quick blah blah, which doesn't do anything. And there was a similar scandal where people had received bad financial advice and lost millions. And the question was posed to the CEO, and I want to say Westpac, but I don't think it was. Maybe CBA. It doesn't matter. They're all the same. No, we haven't. So the question was asked: has anyone been fired over this?
Oh, hang on. So there was 2 things that were being issued about them being fired. Has anyone been fired over it? Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Diet Joke. Look what Diet Joke just put in.
Yes.
Yeah. So talking about the chat room, by the way. So it was one of the CEOs talking
Don't speak,
about.
John. I think it was Commonwealth Bank. Yes.
Yep. And there was a couple of issues. One was they've colluded with fixing the exchange rates. That was one of them. The other one was paying commissions to their salespeople with no recrimination because the people were being sold the wrong products and people couldn't do the public couldn't do anything about it. And the other one was what was the third one? Oh, never mind. Yeah, so I know there was commissions, and the other one was the international exchange rate conspiracy. that was that
But
they were
nobody
being
had been fired.
questioned.
That's the point.
Yeah, they
not a
said,
single person.
so Meki, I'm the government, and I go, I've only got 40 minutes with you because, so we can only see 4 people in the day. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Was anyone ever fired over the commission scandal or for that matter, the exchange rate scandal?
Not to the best of my recollection, Dave. Not to the best of my recollection.
And now, okay, well, we'll move on to the next question then.
But then he said, but we could, and we will, if we feel compelled to do so, we can, but we haven't yet. But that doesn't mean we won't, but we may in the future, potentially, if the issue come up. I hope I answered the question.
I'd sack the guy that gave that answer.
He was the CEO. He was the actual.
It doesn't matter. What
dude, I hear you.
So, but well, look, Meki, we have to move on because, we've got some more questions to ask. And that's it. And then they would ask another question, and that was enough. Oh, I'm all right with that. Yeah, ticked. He said that they might. Yeah, all right. Okay, so we've recently had one of those. Now, remember that the bankers got away with it, then investments slumped all around the world. People were panicked by it. Businesses panicked. Governments panicked, the private investors panicked, everyone pulled money whenever they could. We saw major firms collapse because, well, they were at the front line. In fact, they'd bought so many of these things that they were no longer financially viable.
Let's also be clear here that there had to be some sacrificial lambs like the Lehman Brothers, for instance, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it would have been, I think it would have been just too much for the people to take. So, but look at the Lehman Brothers history and look at the Lehman Brothers board of directors and so forth, and look at where those people have gone. So Lehman Brothers as a company might have been, become defunct, and lots of the employees lost their job. You look at the CEO, CFO, and so forth, plus the board of directors.
But
just see where they are today. Just have a look.
Yeah, you see them at the Fed.
It's a tiny club with a huge upside. If you're in that club, you're okay. You're going to be okay.
It doesn't matter what happens to any company you're responsible for at that level.
Completely relevant.
Yeah. So as a result of all of that panic, jobs dried up and there's no new jobs. Okay, so no new jobs. And then as businesses collapse, there's more people unemployed now looking for work. And so people started to take on because they're desperate. There's no income, the family, mouths to feed, mortgage to pay, for instance.
Yep.
Right? And they would take anything. And this is crucial in knowing what to fix, right? And that is that it downskilled the nations of the world. People losing their high white-collar worker wages, downskilling down to, part-time work at what's that big place in America? It's
Costco or Walmart.
Walmart. So they start working, get a job in Walmart, packing shelves.
Yeah,
what?
That's right.
Just to have income.
But it skews the unemployment figures, because if you're even casually or even part-time employed, you're no longer unemployed, right? So unemployment figures might look, well, they're not fantastic. They're not as catastrophic as they would be if these people, were looking for full-time jobs.
And think about Meki's right, but think about this: if there's only employed and not employed, there isn't people who are employed but want more employment.
Yes, that's right.
There's no section.
Exactly. So you might have to do 3 or even 4 jobs to make up for the one income. You might even not be able to make up the one income that you once had, right? So and that's when you have the middle class seeping, I should say, and slipping rather very fast into poverty. So what was the fundamental effect it had was that the middle class is shrinking, the upper middle class to the lower middle class, I don't care how you classify it, going into wages that are below the minimum, like, or fair living wage. And a lot of people that were well off, I mean, not super rich, but well off, are now not. Whereas the super rich and the really well off are even better off. So our system, and I'm going to say it one more time, then I'm going to shut up about this now until next week. Our system has failed. It has completely failed. And that it was proven by Obama's bailout. In a capitalist system, the banks would have been, let, fail. I mean, they would have let them fail. They would have been permitted to die. That didn't happen. So therefore, this is not a capitalist system, right? So don't point a finger at China or Cuba or whatever. So it is not. It is. You've now redistributed the wealth of the nation, the people, the state, to the corporations. Okay, that's fascism. So it's not what you want to do. And the only way to make any changes is to, well, have a new system, because this system clearly isn't what we need. But there's more to it, Dave. There's
there
more
is.
to the story.
So Meki's just described very well the effective coring of the middle class. So, and it was the most, that effect had a kick-on effect, and the kick-on effect of downsskilling the middle class is the most massive government losses of income. One of their income streams is, income tax as a revenue stream.
That's in fact the biggest income is income tax.
So income tax, okay, but they've still got their state taxes, still got their federal taxes, still got levies and rates and all the other things that they don't call taxes, which are still taxes. But people don't have the money anymore. And there's this decline in the last 8 years. The decline continues, and that decline is because people don't have money in their pockets. Okay? And there's little to no investment to employ people because there doesn't look like there's going to be any growth. So this is the part of the businesses panicking. So the banks and the federal banks and the Federal Reserves and all of those privately run banks that run all our countries turn down the interest rates. Oh, well, people can't borrow money because they haven't got any income, so we'll make it so they can borrow money, and we'll, keep lowering it. But to be honest, low interest rates means CPI stays low.
The CPI is Consumer Price Index, guys.
And that Consumer Price Index, as Meki said, is the thing that also determines wage rises and retirement benefits. So if you're on Social Security, your wage is linked to that so that you don't fall too far behind. But that doesn't seem to make any difference because people still fall behind. There never seems to be enough CPI growth on any of the retirees when they're on Social Security, or in here they've got their pension. That's what we call it. So there's low investment returns also. So if you wanted to say you had $1 million and you put it in the bank, well, you're not going to get $70,000 a year because there's no 7% interest rates. It's going to be too low, right? So you're going to be at 2% maybe, or 1% interest. And that's pretty useless. You can't live on that. So you need 10 times the capital to be able to earn enough money that you used to be able to earn. You'd be comfortable. Not anymore. So even the people who and they have to dip into the capital. Of course, that means the banks lose less capital, lose capital as well, and they have to go and try and recover their capital base because they need to lend money. We've done the whole thing on that. So retired people lose income as well. Now, across the board, income losses, increasing loss of tax revenue. Now, the tax revenue, as I said, comes from state sales, federal sales taxes, all the rates and all the levies. And this keeps drying up because people have less and less money. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. At some point, it's going to collapse in on itself. The government spending stays high. They're hoping any minute, and this is true, right? In all our countries, they say, oh, look, we'll keep the spending up. And the debt keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And they hope that one day, I'm starting to sound like Gerald Salente, one day that it's going to swing around and it's going to be awesome again. And our economies are going to be booming and we'll be able to pay that debt off. But I mean, hey, I'm looking at my watch and it still hasn't happened. We still haven't swung that corner and our, even with 0 to no interest, there is no confidence. We've lost confidence in the system. We've lost confidence in the monetary system, in the federal system, in the federal banking system, in the banks. We have less and less trust now in all of those industries.
That's true, but just to bring a dose of reality to this. It's the longest running con and the most successful con, apart from organized government, that has ever been perpetrated on the human race. The banking system and what we call fiat currency and fractional reserve lending and all those wonderful things, derivatives, and it's a complete fraud. And it's good that this confidence is gone because, like I said, the system has failed. There must be a new system. And, I'm not the first person to say this. It's not an original thought. Once you understand how it actually works, and this particular incident and a couple of incidents like it have shown a light into this particularly dark corner as to how it all hangs together and how much collusion and criminal activity is actually involved. This is, in my opinion, a ray of hope that people are realizing they're being conned. The money we're using every day does not exist. It doesn't exist. Fiat currency literally means because we say so. It's worth something because we say so. There is no longer any reality in the money that you have. It's not grounded in any intrinsic value it might have had at some point. There is no gold reserve. There is no gold standard. Okay, fractional reserve lending creates money out of nothing. I want this whole system to completely implode. Okay, because it's killing us. All right, Dave, this is look, if people don't wake up after all of this, then you know what? It's here to stay forever because this it will never go away. Because I speak to bankers, Dave. Maybe you have as well. People that work in banks, we're fairly high up. They do not know what fiat currency means, and they don't understand the fractional reserve lending system we have. And I said, "Are you serious?" Yes. You don't understand the system within which you work and write loans on. So where does this money come from? Oh, we borrow it from other banks. Okay, where do they get it from? Oh, the money source. This wellspring of money that exists at the center of the earth, which just, it bubbles out money, like the donkey that, poos gold. Blah, 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 blah. Really? No. It's created out of thin air. The money in circulation today, in the virtual accounts that everybody has, does not exist in physical reality. No, that's right. And even if it did, it wouldn't be worth anything unless the government said so. So it's all... See, guys, look, you're right, Dave. It caused a crisis. Yep. Not enough of a crisis, in my opinion. It has to collapse. Something else needs to replace it. And I hope, and even though I'm not a religious man, I do pray that something better will come along. Like you guys did in the early colonial days, before the Boston Tea Party. You had your own colonial script, your own dollar. Lincoln tried to do that. Other countries tried to do that. Have your money that is backed up by something that's debt-free. Okay, don't have crazy interest. Don't have usury and all that stuff. If that were the case, our economy would be in good shape. It was for you. Look at what the economy was like when you had colonial script. Look at it. Seriously. It was brilliant. You were making money. You were thriving. And the King of England said, "Hey, that's no good.
You can't thrive. Thriving's not allowed."
That's right. And the bank said, "Hey, we don't like what those guys are doing. They're not borrowing money from us. You go, King, and you kick some, colonial butt over there." Sure. Okay, let's do that. No, you have to look. See, Dave, sorry, just very quickly. I had this discussion this week a lot because I was locked up in a room with people working on something. Right? That's what happens. You talk about other things. It is important to do your research. Don't just say, "Oh, that's just crazy talk," and you don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. If I'm talking about something, I've done the research. I will assure you. You can look at our show notes anytime you want on our website. shinysideout.net. They're there. We've been somewhat, negligent in putting them up.
We'll get back to it, we promise.
But over Christmas, we'll have time and it'll be updated. We know what we talk about because we do the research. We might get things wrong. And then at that point, I will, and Dave is the same. We will, issue a public statement on radio saying we got this wrong. And this is what it actually is. Hasn't happened a lot, but it has happened a couple of times, I think. But we do the research. So when I speak about something, you can be assured that I know what I'm talking about. All right. And if you do your own research, if you dare, you might be surprised. And at that point you have to decide how deep into the rabbit hole you want to go. I just wanted to quickly say that because it's Dave and me talking here. Sure, absolutely. No, we are. We've been on the air 5 years. We've done a lot of research before we ever even thought of being on the air because that's who we are and that's what we're interested in. And even more now in the last 5 years, I'd say probably exponentially more, because now there's a focus point for us to do the research. But let's keep going with this, Dave.
Yeah, look, all I'm going to say, there's not many points left for the global economy, and that is that the Greece default by the IMF never happened. It was never actioned. Their CDSs, their credit default swaps, had gotten down below 50%, which was normally like 70%, and they would cut them off, and that was it. But someone, and I know the board was replaced because they failed to act, but then the new board didn't act, and it was just glossed over. Who cares? Who cares about Greece? Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
It just doesn't matter anymore. What's that over there? And they distracted us with something
Coffee
else.
tail.
So I have to say that debts become orphaned from payback. They can no longer be paid back. The American government debt was 10 trillion or something. I keep hearing Mr. Trump.
It's mind-boggling.
It's so much money that it could never be paid back. Now, especially it could never be paid back if the interest rate rose. Because at the moment it's been borrowed at zero with no interest.
But this is the kicker, though. This is the kicker. And I want you guys to ask that question. Who are you paying back?
Mm-hmm.
Who does America
owe the money to it?
$10 trillion to?
Yeah.
Well, in the first instance, the Federal Reserve. But who is that? And then on and on it goes. So somebody had to have $10 trillion at some point, or $1 trillion if you consider interest. So somebody gave you the USA $1 trillion at some point. So there's some guy, some big fat guy sitting on a huge treasure chest full of gold and diamonds and emeralds, and he's giving $1 trillion to the States. No, like I said, it doesn't exist.
The money doesn't exist. It's not backed up by gold. There is no gold.
You're paying back a fictitious debt. You're paying back a fantasy. It's like you're in a dream and you're having a really nice cake, and you wake up, oh, that was a nice cake. Yeah, but it was a dream. It's the same with this money. It's not real. You dreamt about it. Someone dreamt about it. Oh, there it is. Boom. It's in the computer now. 10 trillion, 50 trillion, whatever. You want $1 gazillion? Sure, I'll give you $1 gazillion. Here's here. There you are, printed for you. Guys.
Just transfer. Just they could easily just deposit $1 million into every person's account, and that would immediately restore the economy.
Boom.
It is as long as you and the circumstances in which you could spend it would be as long as you used your plastic card and didn't try to remove the money from the bank. So if you used your ATM card, that would fix the economy immediately, and you could just create it from thin air.
The problem is this, though. Think of the world as a Monopoly board game. There's a limited amount of money, let's say, on the board, right? Mm-hmm. So if that's the amount of money you play with when you have Monopoly. And when all the other players are bankrupt, you win. So you've got all the money, right? So this is a bit like that. It's a bit like that, except they keep adding money to themselves. So I'm winning the game already. I'm winning the game. So, I've got more money than everyone else. But you know what? I'm going to get myself some more money. Just in case, a little bit more. Right? That's what's happening.
That's right.
It's a Monopoly game where the bank... which one player holds the bank, right?
Yep.
It's money to their wealth. So in fact, they're using it. Oh, it's mine. You got yours.
One
but now
you,
I've got yours.
and
You're
me,
bankrupt. So good to see you. So that's the game we're playing. A monopoly with banks that have unlimited resources. You can't win. You can never win. That is the ticket here, guys.
Well, that's what you learn when you play Monopoly. That only one person wins. And everyone else loses, and they all become destitute, right? You have to give up all your properties, and you become a hobo. Pretty much that's the lesson. If you haven't played it, you should play it, and that's what you learn. My kids learnt that. Okay. So the China, the slumping of China is really big on all of the global economists' discussions. Oh, they've had to wind back production. Yes, they had to wind back production because we're all skint. No one can afford to buy their products, which are inferior, to be honest, and way cheaper than if we were to make it ourselves. But they're inferior. We're selling them our raw products just so we can make some money, but they sell us back the same thing that we could have made ourselves. Yeah. And it's not as good. So, for instance, if you were to import steel for a bridge, it's not the same steel that we'd make, because if you make steel, you know exactly how to make steel strong and not too brittle by quenching it in the right way. But they don't care, and there's no standards. So they're creating something that's inferior. We use it, it'll fall apart. Pardon me. So impunity. So I have to say, China slums are continually misreporting their profit placement in the world. And their system, where the government just says, hey, the interest rate is now this, we control it. I don't think that's working very well. There's a glut of investment that had been put in over there, and no one can afford it. It's like building, a 2 million story building with 1 trillion apartments in a slum that no one wants to live in. And they're overpriced, but not for our market, Mecky. We could probably, you could buy an apartment for $500,000, right?
Yeah.
But no one over there has $500,000 to buy them. So
right.
they just go unused. So impunity, Mecky. This is the global giant firms that pay zero tax anywhere, only leech money away from. Now, this is in aggregation. This is an aggregated thing. This is a cascade problem, a contributing factor towards the fact that none of us has any money, and the governments are losing their revenue streams. As part of one of their revenue streams is the global firms who aren't paying any tax.
Yeah.
Think about your smartphone. Everyone's got a smartphone, and they're selling them for like $700 or whatever. Where's that money go? Straight offshore.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to that? I don't pay any tax. So you just spent something. You spent money, which normally the revenue stream would lead to the government coffers. It's gone.
Yeah.
And if you can't see that all of these things have been contributing factors to the reason why we're just about to have an implosion of like biblical proportions, in our system, and there really isn't any other way to describe it except for one of the experts this week said it today, and he said there is no end in sight other than implosion or recovery. He said it's like a T intersection at a road. It's either one way or the other. You don't have a choice. It doesn't continue. We're at the point, at the T intersection right now. He said there's only two choices. It implodes or it recovers. And he said, when the interviewer asked, look, what do you think is going to be the best solution to promote the recovery? He stared blankly at them like that was even on the table. You what? No, there is no recovery, he said. He first stated, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen, Mecky. It was in a 2-minute clip, and he said, we either have implosion or recovery. And he goes, well, how do you reckon we're going to recover? We're not going to recover.
Yes. So Dave and I mentioned to you guys the only potential recovery points for the world, or the US, and specifically, which are a massive war, a massive natural catastrophe of some, including a disease outbreak, or in fact, the disclosure, and this is the least likely scenario, of existing space travel and contact with non-terrestrial civilizations potentially, which would help us, because if there was a big market out there, then we could all do pretty well exporting cream cheese to Aldebaran. I don't know. So there are these three options. You pick for yourself which one you want. If it were to come to an implosion, meaning if we had a depression, and the banking system did collapse and took with it jobs, the bankers will be okay for the most part. Trust me, the corporate bigwigs, they're okay. What does that mean? It means that you won't have any income. It means that your supermarkets will have a run on them. The banks will have a run on them for the remaining cash, such as it is, and the goods and services, such as they are. You probably won't be able to afford any of it. There'll be riots. There'll be hunger. There'll be disease. There'll be starvation in first world countries on a scale we haven't seen before.
Yeah, loss of emergency services is one of the other things, because eventually they're not going to have money to go to work.
Well, that's right. And you will have, look, in Australia, I think, to be honest, I think there's a fairly common sense spirit in the world here in Australia. And I think Australia is actually going to be okay. I think the big cities might suffer somewhat. The country folk are going to be okay, pretty much, because, hey, if the economy collapses, why should I pay the bank anything? Screw you. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
and the police will go, hey, yeah, I'm with the people. And I think in Australia the common sense will prevail, even if the military has to step in, and politicians, the fat cats, they don't want it differently. So I'm hoping that in Australia, as I said, things are going to be different. In America, Europe, Asia, if they're smaller communities, they're going to be okay. But if Europe and Europe and the United States, I'm not so confident. I'm not confident because there are too many big population centers with too many people that are relying on too much complex infrastructure, and this infrastructure is very fragile, guys. It's a very very fragile infrastructure. Okay, and this is really it's going to be a problem if things do start to go south. I'm not talking about a zombie apocalypse. I'm not talking about invasion from another, like the Russians or the Chinese. No. I'm simply talking about the banks being closed for a week. That'll be enough. I'm talking about your supermarket being closed for a week, your water supply cutting off. These things will completely destroy complex civilizations and complex nation states like the United States, like Germany, like Great Britain. In Australia, like I said, Sydney might suffer quite a bit, but we have common sense here, I'm hoping, right? And we will help each other out. I think that's and here, essentially quite a few Aussies are preppers by nature, right? They have their own chickens. A lot of my guys in my team have their own, chicken and so forth. And
put my hand up.
Dave, yeah, exactly, right? And look, I'm prepared to I've got enough food to last.
Just say you're prepared to eat that neighbour you don't like.
Well, that's right.
Because that'll be the first one on the grill.
Yeah, but look, and I think people in Australia are more likely to band together than they might be in large metropolitan areas, right? We only really have Sydney as a major global city. Melbourne is big, sure. Brisbane, big-ish. Canberra is a village. So we don't. Well, Sydney, as I said, the inner city especially will have some issues. Overall, I'm hoping that things won't be as bad as they could be in Australia. Can't say the same for the rest of the world. Sorry, Dave, just before we go on and in fact go into the break, SJ has asked us if we can promo his new show. It's called Stream of Consciousness.
Nice.
With SJ and friends. It's on the air Wednesday midnight, right? And we have Dave. Well, we don't. SJ has Dave Adair on. It's we're going to discuss.
I've been talking with David Adair. He's awesome. He's the rocket man.
We need him. Area 51 and alien technology. Once again, guys, Stream of Consciousness with SJ and friends. Midnight Wednesday. I assume that's normal. I guess I don't know, Central Time in the States. I'm not sure. And it's a fresh look at David Ayer, Area 51, and alien technology. So hopefully you can tune into that. I will try because that's actually time I'm up anyway because of a global call. So
awesome.
I might be able to dial into that. So SJ, I hope you get a lot of great listenership for that.
Now, SJ also pasted into, Big John pasted into the chat room something I was going to bring up anyway, and that is the White House executive order that is coordinating efforts to prepare the nation in the US against space weather events. Now,
yes, you sent that through as well earlier.
That's right. Yep. Now, in there, it gives 180 days for the US to be in a position where it's ready to cope. 120 days. 120. That's isn't
3 months.
Yeah,
4
that's
months.
right.
4 months.
Yep. That's not that much. So, we saw Russia with 40 million people told to find their nearest bunker and chow down in there, sitting it out. There's a lot of talk about an EMP from Russia as well, to be exact. In the US, it's one of the biggest worries. A single incident above the US could wipe out everything. And this is also one of the things that was talked about in this executive order. Of course, the executive order was talking about stuff from space in the solar system, but you can really see between the lines. Now, why would you need to have an executive order? Why couldn't this thing just pass the Senate? I mean, really?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
What is in store? Why is this so? I mean, honestly, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that it's a sensitive. Our infrastructure is so sensitive to an EMP or any other kind of mishap, whether it's a rock about a kilometre across compared to the Earth, hitting anywhere on the Earth is going to give us a real hard time.
Oh look, if it's a kilometre, that's an extinction level event, guys. The impact would be far exceed even Krakatoa. Any super volcano explosion, even I guess Yellowstone would be shrinking in comparison and paling in its effect on us. So look, it's very weird. Sorry, by the way, SJ's show is Eastern Central. Station. Sorry. It's called Station Time Eastern. So it's Eastern Time in the States, whatever that means. Station Time, midnight Wednesday. But yeah, you're right, Dave. But if you've got an extinction level events, what are the fallbacks here? Forget a bunker. It's not going to do anything for us unless it's a kilometer underground. What about the arcs? Do we have arcs? Do we have something that can take us off this planet? I don't know, dude. It's I don't know.
And Obama has also said he's done the. We're going to put people on Mars by 2023.
Yeah, I saw that. I think that's awesome. Now, they will just say hi to the guys that are already there, but that's okay.
That's right. So it'll take them 2 years to get there, and the people that they wave them goodbye will be in the jump room program, and will have arrived there 2 years before they arrived.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh. What? You mean I wasted 2 years of my life?
I watched Michio Kaku talk about the US's innate ability to get more probes and things to Mars due to not colliding with anything or not being destroyed. Who knows? That was on the news today. It is today. I mean, why today? Is that Hillary and Trump thing so bad that Obama's just going to cancel the re-election? Whatever, executive order, I can just stay in for it for the rest of my life.
But I've heard talk of that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't dismiss it entirely, because people have said this is the last. Well, Obama's election was the last election. All right, guys, don't go away. We're going to be back after this. Donate if you can, please. The station depends on it, and it'll be 1984. I think we have a couple more news items, but 1984 afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. See you on the other side, guys. Short break.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
On the go? Still want to listen? Don't have one of those fancy phones with too many buttons. Don't know what an app is? Or you don't even care? Well, we got you here at Revolution Radio. Now you can dial in 24/7 to listen to our shows. We have a number for Studio A and Studio B, and best of all, it's free. Don't forget, carrier charges for your cell phone provider may apply though, so check with your cell provider to make sure. So ready? Here you go. Get a pen. Here's the number. Studio A is 712-432-6958, and Studio B is 716-748-0112. Thank you very much for listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station in the world. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello, and welcome back to Dave and Mackie's Shiny Side Out, episode 241, if I'm not mistaken. Oh my goodness, 242! 242, 240 and 200. 241 was last week. We've been sharing some news with you guys, great stuff. And we've also got 1984 continuing today. We probably want to talk a little bit about Trump, maybe, and Hillary. Just a couple of things. Do donate if you can. This station is listener funded. It is the largest station that is listener funded on the interweb. Okay, so if you're on the line and you're listening to this, please dig deep and help us. Well, help Nighthawk run the station. We do this pro bono, gratis, for free, meaning we get nothing. Which is okay though, because we are doing this because we think it's important. And when people ask me, what do you do? Well, I don't really want to talk about my job. I don't want to talk about my job. I work with computers. That'll cover it. That's good enough.
Yes,
no, I like to talk about these things, right? So Dave, I think we should maybe have a just a quick chat around Trump and Hillary. Mm-hmm. I think that's important, and then maybe we can dive into 1984.
I would really like to do that. Okay, so this is to do with. I've watched each debate so far, both of them, and I think Hillary is on a pedestal. I think she knows where she's at. She has an ear feed, and I saw her nodding to what someone was telling her she was going to say next. In between, she was nodding to her, let's call her handler. So Hillary and Trump ramps up to the third debate, and I've been watching this non-stop. It's like it's a television event. It's an event. This is an event like the Kardashians. This is an event like Big Brother. It is, and you should see the promos that are going. It isn't, Meki, it isn't one of those things where you see the respectful people, imagery. It is like, the WFC. Trump versus Hillary next week. Oh, this, blah. Even the voice doing it, and it's sensationalism like I've never seen. And I've heard myself say these words, and and this is why this is important, because commentators are saying it. In Australia, I watched a guy say the words, Trump may go rogue. He said it. In the same interview, the host of the show says all of the Trump issues make Benghazi fade to the back. And he says, I hope they'll bring up Benghazi. Now, this is an Australian saying this. He's a Peter Berner, I think it was. And Hillary's, with the WikiLeaks release this week, that she was getting some of the questions in advance. But the most important thing is, if you do your research, you'll find that there's a death trail behind her. A trail of people dying.
For the Clintons.
For the Clintons, exactly, yes.
The Clinton clan, yeah.
So, if you disagree with them...
The most interesting death is actually the head of the security detail, of Clinton's security detail. He took a job as the head of security for the towers in New York just before they came down, and he was killed there.
That's an easy way to get rid of them. And the people in DNC who were asked, the questions, the big questions, gone about the voting, and they found boxes of votes which were classified as improper voting between her and what's his name again? He's gone now. Didn't take very long. What was the other candidate that she beat? Bernie Sanders. So the Bernie Sanders...
No, she didn't beat him. The nomination was handed to her, dude. You remember? That's what happened.
Yeah, of course it was. Yeah, that's right, because he gave it up. He didn't want to die accidentally. Yeah. Like all these other people seem to be doing. So they found boxes and boxes of these votes that had never been counted as well. I mean, it just keeps going. I mean, that's a classic old one, just hide them. But don't hide them, destroy them. I can't destroy them. I don't have time. Someone will see it. Let's just put it in a storage vault somewhere. So this is what commentators are currently saying around the world, but in particular within the US. They're saying that lying on tape, being caught to lie on tape, when they say something on air and they're filmed, and then you do a fact check on it, and it shows that they were blatantly lying, it doesn't even harm you at all politically anymore. Remember,
that's right.
I am not a crook. 25, whatever it was 25 things that he did wrong, right? 25 receipts or whatever. I forget what it was. And I saw a comparison. And she had how many emails that she deleted? Oh, I don't want people to know about that. Can't know about whatever that was.
And in fact, she wiped the server, is what she did. So who knows? Thousands.
Yeah, that's right. Well, as they're coming to light now the WikiLeaks is being accused of fraudulently creating these from thin air. And one of those happened to be that she was getting the questions in advance. Yeah. And that's just terrible. So they're currently saying that Trump will go rogue, that he may go rogue. He might ditch the party entirely and run as an independent. Yeah. So can you imagine the supporters of him, because they're supporting him, not the party, and they're going to go, yeah, whatever, we'll still support you anyway. And all the media is trying to make out that if you support him, you're a crotch-grabbing pervert. Because that's what they're trying to say. Now, he said he didn't say that, and he's willing, and Trump is willing to, in his defense, he's willing to sue each of them and make them prove it. Because you can't just... And it's how many, 20 years or 30 years old? Yeah, let's bring that out in the 4 weeks before the election.
No, but only then. In the intervening 25, 30 years, not a peep.
Yeah, that's right.
And
it was
this
okay.
particular person happens to be she's a personal friend of Hillary's.
Oh, of
in case you
course.
didn't know.
Of course, that's the truth, right? Yeah.
I mean, guys, do you remember how they talked about the babies that were killed by the Iraqis in the Kuwaiti hospitals? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, that was BS too. That was BS.
That's
so
right.
Look, this is a BS fact. They have a BS factory. That's what they do. It's propaganda.
Well, here it was children overboard.
Anyway, that's just my opinion.
Over here, there was children overboard. There was no children overboard.
There was not a one.
No. But that created in legislation because of that. Look, I'm sure the world has taken its last step into insanity, because I think, in my opinion, the world has finally gone mad. If it hasn't already been, if I thought it was going mad, I questioned it. No, surely it's all going to get better. I kept trying to convince myself, failing, that I'm convinced now that it was some time ago, and it's like we were all transported into a virtual reality where none of it matters anymore. Who cares? It doesn't matter. The planet, animals, who cares? Lying. None of this is important anymore, apparently, for some reason. And, sometimes you feel like you're the only one who's seeing it happen. Meki, I know we've gone through this, but this is like a whole new... It's like someone put a pair of sunglasses on me, and now I'm seeing it the way it really is. I mean, before I didn't want to believe it, and I've woken up this week. I had a really bad fever this week, and I've recovered from it, and I've got this brand new empathy for everything. It's like suddenly I'm connected to the planet, and I'm the only one worried about it. I know Meki is, and I know our listeners are, but I just want to say that's what it feels like, and it's like it's so infuriating. And these are the wake-up moments. These are the moments you have, and it feels like everyone else is hypnotized. Because no one is seeing this, and these quick statements are really important. The USA...
Nobody wants to see it. So.
No one wants to see it. They want their little triangle. I know. So, and the triangle is workshops home. And they don't want to see anything. I don't care. What happens if aliens land? Who cares? As long as I can go to the shops and I can feed my kids and, go to work and I still got a job. They're the most important things. So, this week there was the label in the hospital ruins of a US made weapon. So did the US bomb the hospital? No, that was Saudi Arabia. Oh, but everyone's saying, the US bombed the hospital. No. So the US has been selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, who used them against the hospital. Because you can't bomb a hospital, Meki. That's bad. Isn't that the same thing that's being accused of the Syrian government in Syria, bombing hospitals? But what happened to Saudi Arabia? Impunity. They're bombing them in Yemen with impunity.
Yeah, but it's the Saudis. Don't understand that. I think you have to get your reality readjusted. So let me explain it to you. When the Saudis do it, it's good. When the Syrians do it, it's bad.
Oh, right. Yeah, there are a few other conflicts on the planet where the same thing occurs. Now, I'm going to say there was an email that went out, it was a news article by the Daily Mail. Meki, I'll let you run with this one. What did it say? The Daily Mail ran it.
This was interesting. Yeah, Dave pinged me. Yeah, Dave pinged me on it, and he sent it to me. And they said that Putin, specifically, the Russians had recalled all of the officials, as well as the family home people that were studying abroad, all had been recalled to Russia. Now, the Daily Mail did report it. It came from a Russian website, in fact, which was known for not delivering accurate news. Now, it didn't actually happen. The Russians did not recall their people, which might presage a World War III scenario if you really want to know. So the Daily Mail reported it, and then it was picked up, I think, by APP, Reuters, CNN, and everybody else. I think it made it to the Times. Yeah. So this is dangerous, guys. You can't do this. If you do report a story, fact check it, please. Yeah, you can't just disseminate this kind of information. This is dangerous. Because if it did make it into these respectable newspapers, all of a sudden, and then maybe, Dave, it did make it there on an agenda.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So let's, okay, we know the news story is bogus, but, we're going to run with it anyway. Why? Because it might have the result we really want to achieve. Now, luckily, nothing happened. And it's a bogus news story, but there it is. Do you know what I mean? This is the kicker.
Now, when I first saw it, and I saw the trusted news sources it was coming from, who were supposed to fact check, I became immediately worried. That was my first feelings were, this is it. This is the beginning of, this is a World War action. This is a thing that you do, you pull them all home, and now your people are safe, and you can start bombing. So I couldn't believe that I saw this, and then when I flicked it to Meki, because I looked at all the news sites, and some of them were just using it as a headline to talk about something else, but others were saying, the Daily Mail posted this, and then Meki pointed that out, and he goes, well, have a look at the Daily Mails. So I did, and I couldn't believe it. I just can't believe it. Did they let that run? Now, you're right. I think we have to question why did they let it run.
Look, I'm a very skeptical person by nature, and people think because I talk about conspiracy theories, I'm gullible.
No.
Nothing could be further from the truth. So, no. And I don't hang out for bad news either. Neither does Dave.
No.
Okay? We don't want bad news. We have families. So this shouldn't happen. But so that was the story. Interesting. Let's hope that this doesn't happen again soon.
Yeah. So real quickly, China is playing the West for chumps and controlling the markets. We've known that because the US is also with OPEC trying to bankrupt Russia with oil pricing. So I think it's a tit for tat kind of thing going on. I don't think that's really it's news, but I think it feeds into what I said before. But the big uptick currently on significant global floods and storm damage is on the rise. It's going crazy. Now, this week they announced that Australia would have a twofold increase in cyclones this year. So whatever we had last year, times it by 2, and they'll be more severe. And they also cited why. And the meteorologist was having a really hard time trying to explain that the normal conditions for this apparent increase would have been that there was an El Nino, where the warming of the Pacific Ocean. But he said, we're not in an El Nino now, and we can't see any of that, but the ocean is extremely warm for some reason, which we'll just gloss over, because, it only takes a warm ocean to create strong storms. So that's it. That's all we'll say. We don't, there's no real reason for it, Meki. The ocean's the single most, heat coefficient thing on the planet. It absorbs it and releases it as a heat coefficient of 1, and it's got the depth to be able to moderate its temperatures, and it's got ocean flows to try and keep that at bay. But for some reason, no, it's hotter now, so there'll be more of it, much more, by the way. Sorry about that, right?
So the extreme weather events that we're talking about are now, in fact, the weather.
It is the weather.
Okay.
That's right.
It's the weather.
And look, I've paid particular interest on the amount of degrees above the monthly average, the long-term monthly averages. Now, today we had, 30 degrees, Meki? Did you know
that's
8 degrees above the monthly average? 8. And they said, either they don't mention how much above the average it is. They go above average temperatures today, and they just gloss over it. But if you get the right outlet They'll tell you, and you can hear it. And over the last 15 years, I've heard them say, on average each year, it's 4 degrees. So it started from 4, went through 6, and now we're at 8 degrees above the monthly averages. And I've also noticed, Meki, the sea level rise. I emailed the Doomsday Clock people to ask them why they haven't had an increase because of global tensions. No, I didn't expect to get one, but I've asked them to comment on the statement that I pasted into them, because they also mentioned
good luck with
global sea rise is, and they only monitor. Everyone's doing the same thing. Try and find global sea height from anything after 2014. That's on a graph. You won't find it, and it's 20 centimeters so far since the year 2000, Meki, which is 200 mil.
I'm not going to discuss the potential causes for this, but I think that something is happening is evident. You can blame humans. You can't. You don't blame humans. I don't really care who's being blamed. We know that but climate change is something that happens on planet Earth when I say all the time, I'm talking about geological time scales, right? So we have climate change all the time, and why not now? Why not now? And maybe we're contributing. Why deny it so strongly? Okay, like economic implications, I get it, but it's not like it's such a revelation. We know from the geological record that climate change happens. We know that these freak weather periods occur as well, like the mini ice age in Europe 400 or 500 years ago. So it's not.
But did you know that was caused by a meteor impact in the Pacific? Yeah,
that's right. Right. So, but they always. I mean, there's always a reason for everything. There's always a causality that we seem to observe. So look, I'm flabbergasted that not more is being done, and you ask the people of Kiribati how they feel about climate change, as they're being taken off their islands in the Pacific, as they're slowly sinking beneath the azure waves of the tropical waters there. But yeah, look, that's it. All right. Any more news, sir?
No, sir. Let's move straight from the beginning of the show right now, like none of it happened, to page whatever it's supposed to be, 21.
It's page 21. And look, last week we spoke a lot about the actual technology that is being employed to not just spy on us. That's old school. No. This is now about how they are going to manipulate and even overprint our minds. By overprint, I mean, feeding false memories. I saw a recent article, in fact, last week, on whether or not it's ethical. I think it was in the New Scientist. I'm going to dig it up and have it for the next week's show. But the question was, is it ethical? Is it morally acceptable to implant false memories? Not if we can do it, if we should do it. So we can do it. So the technology now exists to implant false memories. And like I said, I'm going to dig the article up again and I'll share it with you guys. But I read it and I go, wow, this is, it's very topical for us, of course. So, but the question then is, what is being done about this? What is being done about any of this? Is there any protection? I mean, not that I give much stock into the law, I mean, as far as protecting me is concerned, but at least, there'd be something there, you'd think. So the first instance here, this is from President Bill Clinton. He issued a memo and an administrative order of governmental federal police change, but it was not implemented before he left his office. It related to strengthened protection for human subject of classified research. Like clearly everybody's thinking maybe Tuskegee, maybe people are thinking Montauk, and this is March 27th, 1997, and it was entered into the Federal Register on May 13th, 1997. His wife, Hillary Clinton, how topical, which was serving until recently as the U.S. Secretary of State and is in fact responsible for the agencies, made no further attempt to stop the atrocities in question. And we're talking about the human subjects in classified research. Okay, so he did something. He issued a memo, but it was not implemented. And then his wife, Hillary Clinton, until this very moment, hasn't done anything to further that particular cause.
So Senator John Glenn introduced the Human Research Subject Protection Act which is S-193.
Statute one.
Yeah. Statute 193, 105th Congress, January 22nd, 1997. As an ex-astronaut, he knew full well how necessary this was, but the bill was not passed.
That's a shock.
This is the Human Research Subject Protection Act. My goodness.
Yeah. Look, and he's actually, well, this is the same John Glenn that had a few things to say about other things. The European Parliament recently passed resolutions calling for a world convention to ban all weapons used for human experimentation and or manipulation. Sorry. And you can see here the resolution on the Environment, Security and Foreign Policy Act from January 28th, 1999. So this was a good 17 years ago. The European Parliament also called for a convention introducing a global ban on any weaponry enabling manipulation of human beings. Well, there goes the marketing industry. The International Committee of the Red Cross also expressed its concerns in July 1994. Now,
it's concerns.
The European,
we're just concerned about it.
I mean, that's it. Look, the Red. That's the Red. Neither the Red Cross nor the European Parliament have any real power. Mm-hmm. Not really. But
toothless.
Anyway, Dave.
Yeah, they're toothless like the UN. The UNIDIR, the United Nations Institute for Disarmament Research, has issued a media guide to disarmament, especially weapons of mass destruction. Non-lethal weapons are listed, and the list includes mind control weapons. Mind control weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Resolutions, treaties, international conventions, laws must quickly be introduced to bridge the gap between rapidly advancing and usually classified technologies and inadequate laws. Inadequate laws. I can't have those laws not sufficient to be able to cope with what's going on now. UN weapons inspectors should then seek access to government. What's that? Etal?
Others.
Oh, right. Okay. Facilities worldwide, including the US, to eradicate these evil weapons. Hang on. So this is the United Nations Institute for Disarmament Research describes mind control weapons as evil weapons.
The UN also has no enforcement agency for any of this. So that's nice. The next one, though, interestingly, this is something that can be enforced if it ever were proven in court. And maybe that's why the FBI and others are reluctant and, in fact, like to have cases fail so they don't have to disclose any of this. So essentially what happens on December 28th, 2003, the Michigan governor signed, or the then Michigan governor signed Public Acts 256 and 257, which became effective on the 1st of January 2004. And these outlaw the use of any EM weapon on anyone, any electromagnetic weapon, pulse weapon, whatever, on anyone. And the penalty for a violation of this particular, of these acts, public acts, which are laws in Michigan, is 15 years to life, but only in Michigan, 15 years to life.
Hang on, what kind of weapon is this? What? But you see where I'm saying I'm going with this, because do you know of an EM weapon? Well, I know of energy weapons that could be used by the military. Oh, but they're not covered by this law, are they, Mickey?
No.
Yes. This is number 6. U.S. Rep. Dennis Kucinich. I was almost there. DOH. I didn't know. It's director of something.
Democrat from Ohio.
Oh, thank you very much. Democrat from Ohio introduced a bill, the Space Preservation Act of 2001, which is the HR 2977. Look it up. This was an attempt to ban all weapons in space, including the ones referred to on this site. And it goes on. The congressional record shows that mind control, psychotronic, and mood management weapons were referred to in HR 2977. But the bill had to be reintroduced as HR, write it down, 3616 as a watered-down version that excluded such items. Because it just had classified, classified, classified. Oh, in the event of classified, we should use classified weapons. Like the earlier attempts by President Clinton and Senator Glenn, this failed to shore up the loopholes which allow non-consensual human experimentation. It allows non-consensual human experimentation by the agencies and by the military. And like most things kept from the public, these secretive crimes allowed by the deliberate placement of bad laws are undemocratic, abhorrent, and inspired by the inhumane, elitist mentality that the Nazis, well, let's just say anyone, including Dr. Mengele himself, would have been proud of. Meki, next. Keep going.
Absolutely. Now, the ACLU, which is the American Civil Liberties Union, which you're all familiar with, filed a lawsuit in early 2012 against the US government, in fact, at the time, the Obama administration, concerning the covert targeting, killing of individuals by the agencies with executive approval or orders. However, these are only promises recognizing the problem, except maybe for the Michigan law. None have yet borne fruit. Again, you have to prove it in court. Okay, you have to prove it in court. And good luck trying to get classified material into the courtroom. The use of most non-lethal, that's right. The use of most non-lethal weapons contravenes the spirit of all privacy laws and criminal codes, as well as every relevant code and convention in play internationally, including the Declaration of Human Rights, right? Then there's the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the Geneva Conventions, which are, now no longer worth the paper they're written on, ever since we've not coined the term enemy combatant. Okay, and the Nuremberg Code, which was put down after the Nazi trials, or during even,
the Nuremberg
after World War II. The perpetrators are guilty of crimes against humanity. And these don't actually expire, guys. Crimes against humanity have no half-life. Some, some crimes have a statute of limitations.
That's right.
You steal a car after, I don't know, whatever, it's 10, 15 years, you're forgiven. Right? These crimes are not like that. Okay? Those that support these weapons and the research we discussed last week as well, this is one continuous model of research and one continuous technology, right? One feeds into the other, and they're all enabling each other, right? As we discussed. Okay? They're engaged in the worst kind of class warfare. Do we remember what Bertrand Russell said? If we use enough chemicals and education, indoctrination and food, we can create two classes, in fact, two species, two distinct races of human beings, the underclass and the upper class.
Brave New World.
If you, absolutely. In fact, if you look at The Time Machine, the novel by H.G. Wells, where he travels forward in time to the year whatever, and there's the Morlocks and the Eloi. The Morlocks live underground, have sort of degenerated into like a beast-like existence, and they feed on the Eloi. That's the kind of vision that Bertrand Russell had, and make no mistake, H.G. Wells was a contemporary here. So this was the kind of thinking that prevailed in 19th century England, not just in England, but across the European continent. That's what led to all the atrocities of colonialization. Look at the Belgian Congo and see what they did there. It was this view that we can breed a master race, and that it found its natural, not conclusion, but certainly a stage of it in Nazi Germany. So this is what we're dealing with here. They want to control you. It is not enough to spy on you. It is not enough to know what you're doing. It is now a matter of making sure that you do what they want you to do. That's where we're at. Okay. But look, there are heroes, right, Dave? But you probably have something to add to that particular point as well.
I do, actually. Thank you, Meki. I don't think, from all of the examples that I've been able to see recently, that any of the countries around the world are paying particular attention to the Geneva Convention anymore. You hinted on it, but I don't think they are. And they're excluding many of the people that have been suspected as, or just captured and held in confinement where they want information. And this isn't. You can't have two different. What's it called, Mickey? When you say one thing, you do another.
Contradiction.
The other one.
Dichotomy.
Nah, yeah. Well, there's a dichotomy. You can't treat your people one way and then treat, other people another way. You just
Lip
can't.
service. Okay. Sorry. What you're talking about is. No.
Oh,
We'll find the word.
Yeah, it's
we'll
gone.
We'll find it.
It's gone. Who knew? Okay, so heroes. Some of the martyrs to the cause are listed below, and we're going to talk about these. These are people, all of which spoke with authority and inside knowledge, were all murdered for blowing the whistle on covert satellite harassment. Now, Psychotronic was listed up here in one of these things, and the previous host, Solaris, took the country, the US, to court against the Psychotronic invasion in her life. Now, if none of these laws passed to prevent it, they're doing it once again with impunity. Today's show is brought to you by the number 3 and impunity. Bill Roy, ANU lecturer and chief technician, Canberra Black Mountain Tower. He was planning to enter politics and tell the world the truth about satellite surveillance and harassment. He was run down while on his bike alone in the uni grounds after dark. This is not an isolated case.
But let me tell you something about Canberra, because this is where this is in Australia, capital city, right? Canberra doesn't have a traffic problem. A slow day is when it takes you 5 minutes longer to get to the office, okay? So it's not crowded with cars. And if you're hit by a car, okay, on uni grounds no less.
Hypocrisy.
Chances are,
thank you,
yeah,
Eagle.
They were looking for you, right?
Hypocrisy was the word I was looking for. Thank
Hypocrisy, that's correct. Very good. Very good. Who said this?
Eagle. Thank you.
Very good, Eagle. Thank you. The next one is Dr. Fred Bell. Interesting lineage here, by the way. A physicist and an ex-Department of Defense employee. He was speaking publicly about evil attacks on citizens using classified technologies. Okay? Publicly. Look him up, Dr. Fred Bell. He was murdered in his hotel room just after speaking on Jesse Ventura's conspiracy show on True TV. We all know and love Jesse Ventura's show. Well, I do. Ironically, though, he was the great-grandson of Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the telephone. Well, he lays claim to the invention, while he himself was killed for telling people about neurophones, amongst other things. Neurophones we discussed in detail.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to watch that episode again.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Wow, everyone. Don't forget that one. Write that one down and put that on your bucket list. Ted Gunderson, ex-FBI agent. Ted was an effective activist that assisted many and worked tirelessly to resolve this situation. He died suddenly in a suspicious circumstance.
Yep. Alastair Stewart, a psychiatrist. He was discredited, then murdered in his home for highlighting the number of political and agency targets who were falsely committed to mental institutions in order to silence them. This is one of the most popular methods to silence someone if you don't want to kill them.
Medicate
put them in the mental,
put them away.
Yeah. And then you can keep them in there forever.
That's right.
Because it's not a sentence. You're there on the doctor's orders.
That's right.
You're not in prison, so there's no parole. If the doctor says, well, you're never going to get better, or you're not better, well, that's we have to listen to the specialist, we have to listen to the expert, the psychiatrist. This guy has to stay here. He's a danger to himself and society, Dave.
Oh, I don't want to hear those words again. Michael Hastings, he was a journalist working on a story about the CIA chief when killed in a very suspicious accident in 2013. He had also previously ended the career of General McChrystal. McChrystal.
Now there are more guys that you probably never heard of, that and some that you think, oh well, he just died a natural death, and probably not. So there are a lot of people that may want to blow the whistle, or maybe we're not going to blow the whistle, but could have, that were taken care of that way. And again, as far as the overall view of the hypothesis is concerned, and the way we live in this world and nature of reality, you're just scratching at the veneer with all of this. You'd be very hard pressed to not come to the same conclusions we have around these things if you look at the evidence the way we have. It is very difficult to dismiss. It is very difficult to believe anything but the obvious, that something is going on and these people were killed for a reason. Okay, so it is almost criminal of us, all of us, to ignore this, because eventually we are going to be gone, more or less, right? We will depart this world, and then who knows what happens. But our kids will be here, and their kids, and we're building a future now, and have been for a long time, which is not much of a future. You might as well live in a hamster cage. And in fact, a hamster cage where the electrodes are directly connected to your brain. And this is what we're dealing with here. Of course, things are much more sophisticated now. And it's all, wireless and electronically transmitted. Not even human perpetrators necessarily. These could just be computers running on very advanced algorithms that, generate the behavior they want in you. And you might not even be, the drugs might have been enough. Now you've now been plied enough with drugs to go ahead and be mushy brained, so we can implant whatever we want in your brain. But even the strongest of us, maybe even the monks that meditate all day long, that have a slightly different brain chemistry, I don't think we will be able to resist forever once technology exists. To billions of people at the same time. So I'm worried. No, I don't think we have time to start on the next article. This is around the surveillance state and how Australia spies on its own, and that was written in November of 2013. It's very interesting. And if it happens in Australia, I guarantee you it happens. It happens in everywhere in the US, certainly. Then after that, we have an article that was written in 2015, so that's an update. And this is about cell phone technology and how whistleblower told us about that. We also have more stuff, future shock, for example, new technologies that are on the horizon for us. And then we're going to look at the US Patriot Act as well at the end of the show cycle. And we probably will be able to do more next week. But Dave, just in a general discussion, because I don't want to go into the article and not be able to finish it. What we're seeing today is an erosion of the worst kind of civil liberties. In fact, it's completely irrelevant if you're off the grid or not. It doesn't matter, even if you have a bunker, unless it's got a 10-foot lead wall all around it.
Couldn't afford
and
the
you're
lead.
living, and it's a Faraday cage to boot.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way to escape this.
No, not really. You raise a good point. Remember, Tesla was able to put electricity into Gaia. Let's call the Earth Gaia. So
Sure.
By being able to resonate the frequency that Gaia already had. Now they've changed that frequency. They've got a harp working round the clock. The frequencies that are put into the air, and you talk about throwing not so much anymore the terrestrial television signals, which were analog, which were way more powerful than required. But now there's digital, and they can turn them down to power. We all travel around with us microwave emitter, which is our cell phones. We have Wi-Fi, we have Bluetooth. All of these are radio signals, and are all in the air. And I wouldn't put it past, without reading the next article, I wouldn't put it past anyone to have worked out that if we ramp it up or lower it down, we can change everybody's mindset at the same time. There to me doesn't seem like there'd be any reason why we would accept the Kang and Kodos representatives for the US top job. Why would anyone have accepted them in the first place? I'm not saying Trump's a bad guy. I'm really not. And I'm not saying that Hillary is Hitler, like I made the Freudian slip the other day, Hitlery. I'm just not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, when you look at both of them, surely there was a stable person who was a responsible person who wasn't playing their cards right by the elite, but was an intelligent person willing to, maybe some CEO of some, mega giant corporation or something who had, the Earth's best interests at heart. Where all these other matters that are all being discussed by the political parties they're like tiny little things. Who cares? Whatever. Some people died. Whatever. Whatever. We're going to make this better. We're going to do this. We're going to do that, and that's the end of that. And they just go, "Oh, I'm going to dismiss that question because I think that question is wrongly placed for this debate or whatever." I think that people have, like the Kardashians, like Big Brother, turned this whole planet into a 5-minute news cycle TV event. I mean, it shouldn't be a TV event for any of this. I think we're already dumbed down. I think they've already achieved their goals, Mickey. And we've resisted as much as possible. And all those people who listen to this station have resisted. I don't know how we've done it. But we've been able to break out of those molds, and we've been able to move ourselves towards looking for the truth. And when I talk to all the people who are my friends, Mickey, in IT, we're pretty clever. Yeah, we've had to work out things where other people can't work out because they just haven't got the time to do it. So we've looked into it, worked out how to do it. And when you start to ask people in IT, for instance, now why do you think they haven't told everyone about the Sumerian text? And they go, they don't want people to know. Bingo, done. Next question. So, what is it do you think about today that is so different from the past?
I think there are a number of factors that come into play. And since you brought us up, I want to quickly say maybe why I think we are different to some extent. It is the diversity of our background, potentially, the exposure to very many things, including what some people would call the paranormal or unusual experiences that most people don't want to talk about, right? And we can embrace it because our family, or our families rather, lived it, embraced it, and we had no problem accepting it. So I think we are advantage there. I think we've got a major advantage. We're also not pressed into a certain mold. I don't think you were. I don't think I was. From a philosophical or even religious point of view. Even from a philosophical point of view. I mean, we were able to grow our own ideas. In fact, that was the harder path to grow your own ideas. It is the harder path because all of a sudden you're on your own. You have to think on your own. You have to figure things out for yourself. There's no longer an overriding moral authority which will tell you what to do. And I don't care if you're religious or not religious, there's always an overriding moral authority that people turn to. And, be it a philosopher or a religious figure or God, for that matter. I think that's why we were fortunate, because we were different in that way. A lot of people are born into very dogmatic families. And I don't mean this in a bad way. It's just, people are used to a certain way of life, and then if you're Catholic, then probably your parents were Catholic, and your children will probably be Catholic, right? And if you're born a Muslim, then chances are that your father was a Muslim, and your mom, and your children will probably be Muslim, and so on and so forth. Not having that clear direction is helpful. It was to us, but I think it goes deeper. So for the longest time, we have known that there has been this agenda in place, right? And it might be a 5,000, 10,000 year agenda. It might even be longer, right? It could be going well back into the darkest ages. And there were clearly events which wiped us out, and now we're again at the population level and technology level, which is useful to the elite and so forth. Now, if you look very closely as to how we have guarded knowledge, and this is important, then you will find that knowledge has only ever been in the hand of the few. It's only ever been in the hands of the few. And you can follow this through by the language that was used to transmit knowledge, okay? It used to be Sanskrit, then it was Greek, and then it was Latin. And Latin, to make the example more relevant to us, until recently was the language of the scholars. and the church, but it was spoken by very few. Until Martin Luther translated into German. Okay, and then King James after him into English. Well, not him, but he had translated. The Bible, as we know it, only existed in Latin in the Western world. That was it. Similar to the Quran, should really only exist in Arabic. That's what they want. So very few people actually understood it. So you went to the sermon. For hundreds of years, these poor peasants went to the sermon, they listened to someone talking in Latin, and had no idea what he was talking about. Okay? Knowledge was kept locked up away from the people, and we've actually carried that forward. We're no longer interested in educating our children. We give them stuff that they now must remember, and we teach them skills that make them function in society. Yeah, sure. But that's it. If you want any more, then you as a parent are responsible, or your child is responsible to educate themselves further. Barely a subject that we have touched in the last 5 years is something you learn in school. Or if you learn about it, it's usually on a very basic level, like very surface, not in depth. Even quantum mechanics, which arguably has been in the public domain for over 100 years now, or relativity for the matter.
That's right.
Most people don't consider that part of their core knowledge. It is part. These two ideas, relativity and quantum mechanics, are among the highest forms of thought we have achieved. These are true achievements of our culture, and yet very few people completely comprehend what that actually means, and what the very conflict these theories have means for our daily lives, for our reality, for the nature of reality. You can talk about it a lot, but nobody really understands it, right? And most people aren't familiar with these things, and because we don't learn about them in school. In fact, if you don't do physics in university, you'll never hear about it, really. Or you go to private school, maybe, right? The philosophical concepts, Dave, that were thought up by Plato, by Socrates 2,000 years ago, or even if you go further back, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago, even the philosophical concepts that underlie the Bible or the Torah or any of these books are not being discussed. We're just given, it's almost like a crib course, remember the MCSE boot camp that used to exist, right? In 3 months, and learn all about Windows, and you become administrator, and whoop-de-doo, and not really. Okay, I went through that, and you learn a lot more when you work in it, when you go into the depth. You've got a fair understanding, right? But you don't understand it in depth. So if you ask me what the problem is, there's a deliberate move to make us dumber, in the sense that we ask less questions. We're not actually less intelligent. We just don't ask anymore. And I mean dumb here in the sense of being mute, right? We don't ask anymore. And we don't really listen anymore. And we don't want to listen or ask, because we've become machines that work in a corporate world. We've become machines that work in a corporate world. We get a salary, and the food that we eat doesn't help. The children out there in the world today, they eat so much sugar and chemicals, and we don't even know half the stuff. We don't know what half the stuff is, and in fact, what half the stuff does to our bodies and young developing brains. These are brains that are forming connections, paths, and pathways that will last a life. Okay, and chemicals that we put into these bodies, into these young bodies, they will stay there, and they will influence how these pathways form. We are forming habits which are detrimental to critical thinking. We're putting fluoride in the water, which look, you can argue about fluoride in the water or not, and I don't really care what your opinion is. But the truth is, the matter of the fact is, it leads to the calcification of your pineal gland.
Yes,
it does.
Yes,
that's a fact. You can't argue it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing or a good thing, whatever. What I'm saying is, it does it. Okay, you leave the fluoride in the water and makes your teeth shiny, whatever. But my point is, it does do that. The pineal gland, which we've discussed in some detail,
pineal gland,
is, in my opinion, it's an important organ, Dave. It's an important organ. Critical thought, all these other things as well, and so the creativity. So, in fact, the only gland that is calcified by fluoride. So you have to ask yourself, why are all these things happening? And they're happening now, and more increasingly so. Children, ADD, and all these behavioral disorders, the drugs that are being overprescribed. This is not a coincidence, guys. This is an accident. People aren't doing, oh, my bad, oopsie. No. This is a driven program. It's a driven program, which, in Bertrand Russell's words, to create, paraphrasing, to create 2 species of humans. at the very least, two species: the master ruling elite, and then the underclass. Which in the way he put it was, well, once we do that, we get to a point where it become unthinkable for rebellion to occur, because it just doesn't, it can't. These human beings are no longer that, not human beings. Anyway, sorry, I rambled, I went on, and please do tune in next time to show 243. It was good, guys. Thank you.
See you next week. Hang tight for a roundtable on Revolution Radio.